Okay, so I skipped ahead a little bit and worked a little bit more on the head to get the eyes in and stuff. Um, but it was more of the same thing. There really is, whenever I'm working, it's pretty much similar techniques over and over again to get the final result. But I did get the eyes in there, and I think that helps a lot to kind of start to figure out the character because you can kind of start to see the personality showing through and start to get a handle on things. One of the important things I don't want to talk about in this video because I think it shows up in here, even right here, is just that the model, every model that I have worked on, and I'm sure you found this too, is just that it's like it gets really ugly before it gets better. And maybe you're working at home on stuff and it's just like you get to this point where you're kind of frustrated with the model because you're thinking, man, it's just not looking right, and you want to try and get it to a point where it is looking better, but you have to keep refining it before you'll get to that point. And in this video, this guy is definitely at that point where it's kind of like, I haven't rezzed up the geometry yet to start cleaning that up, and I haven't gone too far beyond the really low res geometry that um, I initially blocked in. And so even getting the eyeballs in there, isn't helping a ton just yet because he still just looks really weird. And it's going to be like that, I think, for just a little bit. But it'll start to come together at the end. And I just have to trust that, I've been through it enough times to know that it's going to look funky at first, but, it's going to come around. And if you haven't been through that several times on a character, then, that's some information that will hopefully be helpful. Because really, just like any art form, you're going to have to just keep doing it over and over and over again before you really start to learn what it is that you need to do to get better results. But that kind of also leads into another thing that I wanted to talk about because I don't just want to always just sit and talk about what steps I'm doing right now because those are pretty self-explanatory. Like I'm still blocking in everything. I'm still just using low-res primitives and pushing and pulling those in 3D space based roughly on the design work and just trying to figure out those forms in 3D and seeing where I'm running into problems, trying to resolve them while staying as close to the artwork as I can. But that being said, going back to the topic of pushing through and trusting that the model is going to get better, in that same vein, I would say that as an artist, it's important to start from the basics because then you're going to build on those skills. And so, like when you're learning to draw, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You could just sit and draw and draw and draw, and then you'll learn some techniques that will get some results that you find pleasing, and then you may stick to just doing it that way over and over and over again. And that is not a good thing. You should try and break yourself of that habit and try and force yourself to really kind of learn the way the great masters learned, which was to just do studies, go in and look at life, do anatomy studies, do life drawing studies, carry a sketchbook with you, paint, sculpt, and just do study life, still life studies of anatomy, of plants, animals, everything, because all those things are really going to help you to train your eye to think about form properly, to bring some realism into your work, because looking at this character, you might be wondering like, how would that apply to this character? But I think that, right now, the direction that I'm going with this guy, it would be easy to look at it and think, man, this thing, if it doesn't go much further than this, it's going to be really cheesy. It'll be a kind of decent version of the alien, but it's not going to be like Vernard, like this living, breathing character. It's going to be, like a really weak attempt at capturing the character. The things that are going to take this guy over the top are going to be throwing a little bit of anatomy into his body, throwing some gesture into his pose, bringing some real life into him. And you can do that, by knowing what to look for and what to put into the character. We talked earlier about the pose and how he's kind of got his hips out in front of his face, and so he's going to look like he's going to tip over. You may put that in there and think that you're matching the artwork, so why does it matter? But those things make a huge difference to the audience. They have a huge impact on the viewer. And so it is important that you think about those things. You want to match the design, but at some point we're going to leave this design and start to correct things that are wrong. Like basically we're going to use the design to get all the main landmarks in place, and then we can go in and just start sculpting and refining, and we don't really even have to worry too much about the art. We can draw inspiration from it. Like one of the things that I really liked on this guy detail-wise was these wrinkles that are on his forehead, and they're kind of angular and carved in, and so I will certainly draw inspiration from that, and I will carry that through to other areas of his body, and those observations will help inform how you go about detailing the character. But I'm also going to add some anatomy and some stuff to the character that may not necessarily be in the drawing, but I think is still going to plus the character. And those are going to be the things that take it from being, a mediocre model to being a really cool model. And like, there is a way to make it even better. Like, it's a really cool design anyway, and it's going to be fun no matter what. But there's a way to even take it beyond that. But you really won't be able to do things like that with your model, or even be able to evaluate properly what is bumping you about the model if you don't take that time to study, traditional art. Those things give you so much strength when you're working on even a simple character like this. Cartoon characters are very deceptive because I think people look at them and think how simple they are, and so it must be easy to design them, build them, rig them, animate them. But and that may be true if you do like a really lame version of cartoony. But there's a lot of complexity in doing cartoony work, which is one of the reasons why I love cartoony stuff, but I also love to challenge myself by doing things that are more realistic too, and I think that range is very important to being a solid artist and not just someone who can do a certain thing well over and over again. So I will talk a little bit about, I guess, I'm trying to get the head still refined. I did thin the head out quite a bit from the last model. That was one of the things where I didn't record that session because I was just kind of going in and tweaking it to see, what was going to work, what was not going to work, and ended up thinking towards the very end of it, man, I need to throw the eyes in there because that's really going to be one of the only ways that I can see what it is I need to see with this guy. Here I'm throwing a little bit of anatomy in there. I mean, it's very subtle because it's still very simple geometry, but I went in and just kind of pushed the elbow a little bit. So there I'm kind of looking at him, evaluating what does he feel like the drawing. There will be a point where we'll get him going, and we'll kind of be like, man, that's it, that's the drawing, it's totally there now, and then we can just work from that point forward, not having to worry about, is his knee really in this position? Is it this low? Is it bent this much? Are his feet, angled this way or that? We'll get to a point with the blocked-in version where we don't have to worry about whether or not those things are working. We'll know it. We'll be able to feel it. We'll be able to sit it beside the drawing and feel like all the forms are really nicely represented. And then at that point, we'll just kind of throw the artwork away and then go into those final stages of refinement where we're adding, probably some, seams in the clothing, separating the gloves from the arms, adding those details in the feet there, like the heels and the seams on the tank. That's going to be kind of like the icing on the cake. So right now we're still definitely mixing the ingredients. So here I'm doing this trick again with the poly, organizing, or aligning the work plane to that polygon. I called this video the head blocking part 2, but I work quite a bit on the body because I'm starting to get to the point now where I need to look at all of the pieces together to know where to go next. One of the things I'm doing, it may look like I'm only comparing the drawing to the model and trying to line up my geo perfectly with the model, and I do that, but right now when I'm looking at it, it's still not quite looking like the model to me, and so then I'm going to start evaluating the negative spaces, and that's something that I've recently started doing with life drawing that's helped me a lot in my modeling, is that looking at the negative shapes and working on getting those to feel right. That's going to be a really big part, a really big piece of the puzzle in making this guy look like this guy. And when I say that, I mean, if you look at the shape not the shape that his mouth is creating, but the negative space that it's creating. So like that swoopy triangle bit that goes into that shape coming from his eyes down over the front of his upper lip. Evaluate that shape, and same with his hands and his legs. Don't look at his hands and legs because they can get lost in the body. Look at the space between his fingers and try and create that shape. Those are the things that are going to help you to nail down the final character. And so that'll probably happen in the next video. This is, I'm getting close to the end of this video, but in the next one I'll definitely be continuing to get all the big pieces blocked in. We'll get the hose in there and the helmet and that back piece and the feet and hands, and then that'll probably happen in the next video. And then after that I'm going to start focusing on those negative shapes and getting that to feel better.